if I can count backwards from 10. Right, let's get into the podcast. Welcome. It's another episode of the Paul Goff podcast and audio experience today. I'm very excited for this interview. I came in today, my calendar had a name in it that just makes me smile in a very, very good way. It's going to be a fantastic podcast. It's the end of the day in England, and there is nobody that I would rather speak to at the end of the day than Gina Fick. We're going to talk all about the lessons learned of moving to a bigger premises, and we'll uncover, I'm sure, one or two mistakes that might have been made and one or two opportunities that have been leveraged as a result of moving to a bigger premises. So lots to share with you on the podcast in the next 45, 50 minutes or so with Gina. Before that, big announcements for events, housekeeping, and thank you to our sponsors, PT Everywhere. We love those guys, and the feedback and the general uptake, if you like, of people moving towards PT Everywhere for their patient management software. It's just been fantastic to work with these guys, and they're a joy at our end, certainly, to work with, and many of our clients is telling us the same. So if you're looking for a practice management software, I know that many people are disillusioned with their current software. It's one of those things that people really struggle. It's almost like a merry-go-round trying to find a good practice management software. PT Everywhere, they're doing amazing things with the clients in our community, in the Planet Paul community, and will be at the upcoming event in New Jersey in person as well. So if you want to come to New Jersey, that might be a way not only to come and say hello to myself and Gina and the team and other members of the community that will be at the New Jersey event. We're going to be there on June the 29th and 30th, and PT Everywhere will be there as well. If you can't come to New Jersey, check them out on the website, PT Everywhere. Google them, get in touch and tell them Paul sent you. And let's do this for fun. Tell them Paul said you could have an entire 12 months free. Just challenge the guy. Let's do this. Challenge the guy who's in the sales department and say, well, I thought I could have 12 months free. And when they ask, who told you that? Just say there was this English guy you listened to on a podcast, and see how well they handle that. Obviously, I'm joking about the 12 months free, but I just think it would be really funny for their sales guy to deal with that objection. He's probably not ready for it. So head over to PT Everywhere and tell them Paul sent you. And if you do want to come to New Jersey, we'd love to see you. paulgoff.com/Jersey. All of the details of the PT scale event that's taking place in Jersey City. You'd fly to Newark are there. And on the topic of events, we're just 3 days away now from our big one in the capital city of what I believe the most beautiful capital city anywhere. Obviously, I'm biased, but London. We're going to be there on Friday, 7th, 8th, and 9th. So if you're coming, we cannot wait to see you. Expect around 100 other clinics there as well. We've got England and Liverpool legend Robbie Fowler, who's going to be speaking. We've got Javino McLean, who's going to be speaking. Huge influencer, one of the best motivational Instagram accounts I've ever seen. This guy's amazing. You've got to check him out. Even if you don't come to the event, just check out Javino McLean. That guy as well is another source of inspiration. He brightens my day, that's for sure. And I'm very excited to have him as a guest speaker on Sunday at our London event that's taking place. So hopefully we'll see you there. If you're listening to this live, it's PPM Live. PPM Live, is it UK? Leicester, type it into the chat. I've got that many different things. ppmliveuk.com is the URL to get your seats for our big marketing event for physios happening in London. We'd love to see you there. After that, save the date, October 18th, 19th, and 20th, PPM Live is coming to Orlando with some more big speakers that are about to be announced. But save the date. I keep saying this, we start the relationship on the podcast. It's lovely to begin a relationship in your car, on a flight with you, in bed with you perhaps, on the toilet with you perhaps, in the gym with you, walking the dog, whatever it is that you do and however you listen to your podcasts. But we love to see you in person. That's the whole thing that I think makes us very, very different. We do love to spend time with you and get to see you at our events. So that's my little housekeeping done. Let's go and talk to Gina. Gina, how are you? Welcome. You're officially the second Paul of Famer. I wanted you to be the first, but we couldn't get the schedule to match up. Gina, you are an official Paul of Fame member. How does that make you feel? And be honest, or you can lie, whichever one you want.
It's a great honor to be on this Hall of Fame episode, and I am very grateful for everything that you and the Paul Goff community has done for me. So thank you so much for having me on today.
It's a pleasure to have you, and it really is. And obviously, I've got to know you more over the last few years, but I do remember the day that I realized the type of person that I was dealing with. I've got to share this story. So for the listeners, I'm going to bring you into the conversation. I was doing a mastermind coaching call, and I challenged people ahead of an event. It was PPM Live Orlando last year. And I said, why are you all traveling economy, right? Or why are you all staying in, kind of basic rooms? Or why are you all going to get an Uber? I challenged everybody to think bigger. And I said, well, how would you like to get there? Well, because we'd probably like to get there first class, and we'd probably like to get picked up in a limousine, and we'd probably like to stay in the suite overlooking Seawell so we can see Shamu doing backflips and stuff like that. But how are we going to pay for it? Well, we're going to pay for it with a price rise. So I challenged people to do it and to treat themselves to a limousine and champagne and various things to get to the event. And Gina was the winner of the competition. She gave herself a pay rise, treated herself to limousines and a wonderful weekend. And we recognized that with a bottle of champagne on stage at our big event. And ever since then, Gina, I've absolutely loved you and just thought you were amazing. Like, wonderful, wonderful personality. Tell us a little bit more about that. We'll start there. What did you do? And what did you do with your prices? What was the thinking going on at the time when I was talking about treating yourself when you come to one of the events?
So I love a challenge. And when I was listening, I remember you said, well, how are you going to get there? What are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to raise prices. And you said, when are you going to do that? And I said, well, I think about, end of the year, early, or maybe the first of the year, I'll start raising prices. And you said, why would you wait? Why not do it now? And I said, you're right. Why not do it now? And so I have to be honest, I didn't hear much more of that conversation. I muted and I started working on it right then. I started printing out the new price sheets. I put them up in the clinic before the call was even over that day. I had the new hotel room booked. I had the new flight booked and the limousine booked before that call was over. And I love a challenge, and I just went right at it. And it was super fun to show up in that limousine. And I've never regretted raising prices from that point moving forward. So
I love it. I'm going to get on to talking about you and your clinic and, all of the lessons in just a moment. But I think it's just a wonderful point to stop there and reflect on what actually you've said. For people who are listening, I have thousands of people listening to this podcast from all across the world. And really, and this is brutal, but success is broken up into there's a massive group trying and there's a small group doing. And the difference, sadly, that most people don't want to hear is that the successful group of people, right, and I'll include myself in what I'm about to say, is a very, very ordinary group, right? And I mean that respectfully. There's no great mystery to any of it. There's not necessarily any extra level of Einstein intelligence or superiority in any way, shape, or form with individuals. But what there is an extraordinary commitment to things like taking action. And rather than waiting 6 months and emotionally feeling better about that price rise, there is I'm doing this today. I'm booking my flight now. I'm booking my seats and I'm doing the fucking thing, right? And I've found from, again, why I love doing these interviews and the podcast and getting close to people, I can get clues from people as to why they're successful. And that's the simplest one, is that people get given a challenge or a strategy or a new way of doing something and they act on it within minutes. And I got that. I remember Tony Robbins always used to say that the minute you hear a good idea, do something, anything that just takes you closer to it. If it's a good idea to go to an event, book the flight. Don't worry about the ticket. Don't worry about the hotel. Just book the flight, or book the ticket. Don't worry about the flight. Book the hotel. Don't worry about the ticket. It was like just one thing that took you closer to doing it, rather than, I'll do that next week. I'll do that the week after. And in the end, unfortunately, it becomes the hallmark of most people's lives. Somebody like you builds a business that goes so quickly, we have to move premises, and shoots past 7 figures and kind of has all these amazing things going on. It's not because you're lucky. It's not because you're privileged. It's not because of a certain area that you live in. It's because of what you've just described. And I think that's absolutely amazing. So tell us, give us a formal introduction. Tell us where you're from, your clinic name. Tell us a little bit about your business and the background. How did we get started?
Again, my name is Gina Fick. I'm from Highlands Range, Colorado. We are about 90 minutes from the mountains in a beautiful area nestled between Colorado Springs and Denver, Colorado. I've been a PT for 25 years and blessed to have been able to serve a lot of patients well. I'm a mom of 4, married to an incredible husband. Our children are ages 16, 15, 13, and 11. They're wonderful. After about 18 years of practice, in corporate private practice and outpatient settings, decided that I wanted to go a different route. I could see a better way, see a better future, had a better vision for how physical therapy could be provided, and decided to open up my own practice in 2017. And I haven't looked back since. It's been such a blessing and honor, and privilege to be able to serve our community well, to build a lot of great relationships in the community, and also to be surrounded by some of the best physical therapists in the country and in the world in the Paul Goff community. And I'm so very grateful to have met you and this community and where it's taken me so far. I love providing an excellent quality product in our physical therapy care and service. And I believe that when you do something really well, other people will talk about it and they'll send you their way. And that's what we try to do. We try to be exceptional in everything that we do, from the moment that we talk to a patient on the phone, potential client on the phone, till the time that they leave our practice. We want them to be a family, a community, and we try to treat people in that way.
Who's the specific patient and who is your ideal? Tell me your business model. What does it look like?
Our ideal client is anywhere from 35 to 55 years old. They are an active adult or athlete who wants to maintain their activity level, wants to maintain their being able to hike, to ski, to run. This is a very active community. People invest a lot in their health, their activity, and they're very willing to invest the resources, time, and finances to get better. I think when we market to these clients, that's what we tell them, is we will do everything possible to get you as better as quickly and safely as possible, and throw all the resources at that we can. And if we don't have an answer, we'll find the answer for you.
Love it. Take us back to when you started. What did people tell you when you first kind of mentioned maybe to people that you were going to start a cash practice? What was that like?
Oh, I have a great story about this. I don't think really anyone's fully heard the full story in the Paul Goff community, but I was working for a corporate private practice, and a very well-known private practice in the U.S. And we were having one of our monthly meetings with the manager, where they go around and ask what your productivity has been for the month, and you report that, and they ask what you're doing for marketing and sales. And I had some really great ideas that I thought would be helpful and effective for the clinic. And long story short, I won't bore you with the details, but the clinic manager said, "Well, Gina, if you think you can do that, why don't you just go do that?" And that was my challenge, to say, I thought in my head, okay, I think I will. But I just, kept my cool, and I just shook my head, and I took a lunch break after that and talked to my husband. I called him on the phone and I said, "I think today's the day." I said, "Is it okay if I go ahead and resign? I want to start my own business. I don't know what that looks like. I have no idea. Do we have the finances to pay the bills? Are you comfortable with me quitting?" He said, "Yeah, you should do it." And so I called that manager and I said, "I'm resigning." I gave her sufficient notice. And I said, "I think that I realized that this is something I should do." So I was very respectful. But when she said that, I thought, you know what, I need no other extra motivation than to right now say, this is the last day that I will put up with this nonsense. And so I had no idea what I was doing, except for the fact that, Paul, I had been following you for a couple of years. And I didn't know how to go about starting my own practice, especially cash pay.
Yeah.
But your message resonated so deeply with me, and what your mission and vision was for not only your business, but that you had actually made it work. And you made it work in an area that was very challenging for it to work. Maybe, with the NHS, and you have people who are paying you cash, and you have these multi-million dollar, practices who are very successful. And I thought, and you just spoke very real and very clearly. And I thought, this is the guy I want to follow. So because I've been following you, I had some ideas stored away of what I wanted to do. And when I resigned, I started working on, the idea of building my own business. But yes, when I told people kind of my ideas of what I was going to do, they said, so one of my friends, she was actually the head of the Private Practice Association in Colorado. at the time. And she said, the very worst idea you could ever do, the worst thing you could do is open up your own practice. She was the head of the private practice. And I said, well, I'm not going to do it the way. And I said, I'm not going to do it the way you do it. She said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm not going to take any insurance. She said, that'll never work. People aren't going to pay for that. I said, well, people pay to go get their hair straight, and they pay for their nails. They pay for these elaborate massages. They value that. And I said, I think I'm just going to try it. I can always go back to this. And so
it's like just to jump in there, the head of this kind of sums up. I think this sums up life. I'm often on a crusade for, you've obviously been around me for a while, right? I'm anti-system, I'm anti-government, I'm anti-rules, I'm anti bullshit, I'm anti-whatever, right? There's so much stuff out there that's just complete bullshit that people are following, and they're literally lemons walking off a cliff, just following each other off a cliff, right? And it's because of things like this that I hear that you've got the head of the Colorado private practice section who's supposed to be your go-to individual for hope and opportunity and sort of know-how and all of these things that you assume that this person's going to get and give you. And they're telling you the best thing that you can do is not start a practice. And we wonder why this world is going wrong. And there is so much shit and unhappiness and lack of productivity or fulfillment. And as you said it reminded me, I was once told the story of, I don't know if you've heard this, but the founder of Weight Watchers, there was a period where the stock market, she floated Weight Watchers on the stock market and it plummeted. Whatever it was doing well and it plummeted. And I think it led to the rebrand and why it went from Weight Watchers to WWW, whatever it was. And she was caught on camera, unbeknown to her. And somebody said, come on, then what's the secret to weight loss? And she didn't say like all these portions and like go to this thing and check in every Thursday and, get on the scales and be part of an accountability group and all of the things that Weight Watchers stands for. She said, it's really quite simple. Just put the fucking fork down. It was a comedy moment, right? But she meant it. And it was like, basically, she completely trashed our whole product. She was like full of shit for 10 years that like all of this stuff worked. And the solution really was just put the fork down and you could probably lose a bit of weight. So there's at least a little bit of truth in it. But it doesn't bode well when you're the head of Weight Watchers promising all of this, this package that works for you and so on and so forth. Let me take you back as well. So you listen to the podcast or you follow me or whatever Ellie does. What was it? What was the bit that gave you I could do this? Or what did it, what did you get from listening to me or whatever? I'm intrigued. What was the early message, probably the right way, that made you think, yes, I can do it and here's how I'm going to do it? What was it back then?
Well, I had so many people saying it wouldn't work and I couldn't do it. And I'm one of those people, if you tell me I can't, then I'm probably going to find a way that I can. And so that alone is just motivation. But when I was listening to you, I heard steps that you were and actionable items that you were listing. I thought, well, you know what? I can do that. And I have confidence in my skills as a physical therapist that I could provide a good service. And I have confidence that I could provide a good customer experience. But you laid out a framework and a foundation that was very easy to follow. And that you also, what resonated with me, like I said earlier, is that you show people how they can do it and that you did it yourself. It's one thing for someone to say, like, this is what you should do to be successful. But when someone's actually done it and they tell you how they've done it, and this is the framework to follow, and you make that, and you have a team of people that support physical therapists like myself, then it felt very much like something I could do. And it gave me the confidence to do that.
It's interesting you say that. I always remember as I talk to you now, and again, I don't know if you can see this, right? It appears that I'm in a basement. I'm actually in the third floor of a building, right? But if you can see out that window, can you see it?
Yeah.
There's a blue thing, right? Can you see the blue? I don't know what you can see.
I can.
That's my physio clinic. You should be able to just see Paul Goff physio rooms, right? Out of there. So that's the spiritual home of where everything started. And if you come here now to England, so I'm in England for the summer. Jason Han is actually landing, I think has just landed. He's flying in from LA today. I've got Wong flying in from Miami. We've got Carrie coming from Boston. And we've got actually another guy from Denver, Jamie Bouvet. Jamie's coming in from Denver tonight for our event this week as well. So I've got people coming up to this beautiful tourist mecca called Hartlepool, right? Not. But it's a wonderful spiritual thing for me that now I've evolved this business. I remember saying to the staff, we're going to have an opportunity here to move to a swanky, big, fancy premises, right? Because we're going to have this beautiful agency and we're going to have all these people and web designers and software builders and all this stuff, right? I said, but we're not going to do it. We're going to stay entrenched in this area so that every single day, every single employee gets to see that building as to where all of this started from. And every day we have to walk past it or in it or through it or whatever it will be, that's where all of this started from. And when I first started the coaching company, I actually delayed it a year because I knew I could do it. I knew I could do it, but I wasn't ready. I hadn't finished off everything in the physio business. There was things I hadn't done, and there was things I needed to build, and there was just a team to finish off and some systems to finish off. And I remember saying to Natalie, I need to finish this because when I get to the point of being a coach, anything you ask me, I'll be able to tell you that's how I did it. That wasn't from a book. That was how I did it. That was the painful lesson I learned about recruitment or hiring a finance person or building a marketing system or getting to a full clinic or running out of money or whatever it would be. Like I needed a lesson on almost everything for me to be able to authentically answer a question. Now people might not like the answers, but it was just my way of doing it. So I'm pleased that you were able to pick up on that because I do think it's important as well. So, lessons, we're going to get into it in just a moment. Lessons on moving to a bigger premises. What I'm interested in is your lessons on spending money to make money. Tell us a little bit about that as a business owner. You're doing fantastically well. It's a business now that's past 7 figures and doing amazing. You are smashing it as it goes, right? If you know, I'm not going to say anything other than that. You're just nailing it. How have you got there so quick? Tell me some lessons, what you've learned on spending money to make money, because I think you have that mindset, but I think that many people who want what you've got want to do it without that. How do I invest in staff or invest in marketing or investing in yourself or whatever it will be? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I'll tell you, I first started out with literally $0 in the bank. I had no savings for this because it happened earlier than I thought. So
What was
I
the time? What was the timeline from that day where the girl in the office said, "Oh, if you want to do your own thing, go do it." What was the timeline from that to the resignation? Bring me in on that.
I gave her 6 weeks notice. So I
So,
gave her a lot of notice.
but what was that the same day though? You resigned. Was it that
Yes.
day or the next day? The same day. So
No,
that
that
so
day.
this
We were
that day.
done.
So this is what did I say at the start? What did I say at the start? Right? How you do anything is how you do everything. And that wouldn't have surprised me. I was almost going to say to you, let me write it down. I was going to say 2 weeks. From that day to that, it took you a day from this isn't going to work. This is not where I want to be to I'm resigning to I'm moving. And however many, year or 2, 3 later, we're running a practice that's moved on, 7 figures, staff. The speed at which you make your decisions is your biggest asset. Never forget that. So we
Thank
so
you.
we
Yeah,
resign.
it was 2 hours, Paul. Instead of 2 weeks, it was 2 hours. So the meeting was around noon, and I remember it was 2:30 when I called her. And I requested a meeting about an hour later after the meeting, and at 2:30 I called her, so it was 2 hours. So that was the timeline, and I had no money saved up for this, but I thought, part of what I did when I started was that I wanted to give back to the community. I really had no other objective in that other than I needed a little bit of a break. I was feeling burnout. And so I started a mobile practice, but I started volunteering at 2 local high schools, and they couldn't have been any different. One was a local high school that was very, very wealthy. The tuition there at the time was about $25,000 a year for the high school students. And the other school was in downtown Denver. A lot of the students were very impoverished. They didn't know where their next meal was coming from. And so I volunteered and I gave back to those 2 separate communities. And in that, I developed so many relationships. And my business started growing organically. I reached out to some, physicians that I had networks with. I reached out to some other former clients, but for the most part, it grew, I think, for the first 6 months pretty slowly, and that I just let things happen as they will. I started treating patients very well. People started hearing about this girl who's driving all around Denver with a table in the back of her car going into people's homes. And I started saving up cash. I took out a $10,000 line of credit and I paid that off within a few months. And I just started saving money. And I built up a cash reserve. And I think, to answer your question, spending money to make money, I had to, at first, I did everything in the business, and I just saved. But I realized it was only going to get me so far. And if I really wanted a successful practice, I had to invest in people, and I had to invest in a team, and I had to invest in systems that would allow the business to grow and thrive. And I had to be a good leader in that. And so learning um, the value of knowing how to hire correctly and
Yeah.
recruit, and also have a team behind me that allows me to then make more profit, make more money, so we can, have nicer things and move into bigger practice. That's kind of how it all started. And once I realized that it was okay to let go of a little bit of that money and invest not only in people but equipment that would help drive more business, um, then that became a more comfortable thing to do. But you're right; it's just about making fast decisions, capitalizing on opportunities, and not looking back and taking the risk.
Talk about if we can go there. And I know there's been an experience or a less than positive experience with at least one employee, and it's up to you how far you want to go into that conversation. But tell me some of the things you've learned about moving out bad employees over the last few years. It's a thing I think we all get stuck on, and to get to the level that you're at, you're going to have to learn to trust people, obviously, but B, we're probably also going to get a few rotten eggs along the way that unfortunately make their way in. So tell me a little bit about moving out bad employees.
The thing I learned about moving out bad employees is do it as quickly as possible. I think that, you can make mistakes. You can make mistakes, or maybe you don't know someone the way you thought you did. But once you realize they're toxic, you got to get rid of them immediately, as quickly as possible. I'm not someone who likes to do something like that. And I like to give people second chances and to be fair. But to be honest with you, the thing that I've learned is once you realize that employee is toxic to your business, it's only going to go downhill from there. And I think on the flip side, what I've learned is to be always hiring, always recruiting, and to do that in a way. When I first started when I first started hiring, I was just enthralled that someone would want to work for Fick PT and
Yeah, yeah,
Performance. I
yeah.
was just so excited. Oh, they want to work for me. And I didn't have the vision of the type of employee that I needed to hire to have our business be most successful. And now that I have a better vision for that, I think then that helps drive our business to be much more successful. But yeah, when you realize and you find out things that shouldn't be a part of your business, don't give it a second chance. Don't give it a second look. Just move on from there. And I think that that's one of the biggest things I learned. The situation happened last fall, and I became aware of it, and I didn't sleep a wink that night. I
Mm.
actually was kind of physically ill, to be honest with you, because it really caught me by surprise. And I don't like to be caught by surprise. I feel like I'm usually a pretty good judge of what's going on. And I remember I messaged um, one of the members of the Pog team at about 2 or 3 in the morning. And I said, I really need to get on a call with you, like, as soon as possible. I got on a call a few hours later with this person, and they said, well, you have two choices. You can get rid of this person immediately. You can give them a second chance. And I let that, resonate for a little bit. I didn't, and I'll tell you, I didn't get rid of that person right away. It's
Yeah.
probably one of the biggest mistakes I made. And I wouldn't do it again. But eventually, when I did get rid of that person, it really freed me up to be able to make better decisions moving forward for the business. And I was very determined again that the next month after this, so I was left essentially as the only PT in the practice once this person left. And I thought, you know what, we're going to have the very best month we've ever had in this business. And I'm going to make sure that that happens. I'm not sure how it's going to happen. We're going to make sure that happens. And I went to PPM Live in October. And when I came back, uh, we put some strategies in place to make sure that we had the very best revenue producing month in November that we've ever had in our business. And that was with me being the sole PT. And so I only say that because, a lot of times fear drives our decisions or non-decisions. And I think I was fearful that I couldn't move forward in this decision. But once I moved forward in this decision, we not only did we not lose business, but we had the very best month we've ever had that month after that person was left.
I think what's important for everybody listening is that you have a set of, I don't like rules, but in this case there is a rule required of what you'll tolerate. I've heard it taught as above the line, below the line. And there are certain things that are above the line, and it can be, look, I'm having a bad day, I've made a mistake, I'm going through a bad period, my husband's left me, wife's left me, mother's died, child is ill. Like, there's things that are above the line which you tolerate and you turn a blind eye to as long as they're not habits and consistent. But there are things below the line where it's just a flat out that's not happening. That's tapping up employees, that's tapping up clients, that is underhandedly saying things about you, genuinely going behind your back, trying to undermine your authority, your responsibility, snooty like on purpose ways of undermining culture. Those things are the things that have to be drawn a line and do very, very quickly. But what happens, and I think I remember saying this to you in one of the CEO sessions, and if it wasn't you, I certainly said it to somebody else. It's very easy to think about the business that you lose, but I think what's more important to think about is what you're actually losing by maintaining that type of employee. Your own integrity is being lost at that point. So we are obsessed all the time with the external. How's that going to affect my business? If I let this rock star go, if I let this front desk go, what if she takes 2 or 3 other members of staff? What if he takes another PT with him who doesn't like the fact that I lose him? Well, great. Well, what about your integrity? How do you sleep at night? How do you sleep at night knowing that you're employing? I'm sure it wasn't you, it was somebody. I was like, how the fuck do you employ a rat bag like that and let him stay in the business? Like, how do we go to work with these people? How do we breathe the same oxygen as these people? And I've always tried to come from that place where the business is important, but not that important that I have to work with you. I love your response to it. That it's backs against the wall. If you put my back, and I think this is where entrepreneurs shine through. You put my back against the wall, I'm probably the happiest that I'll ever be. COVID, take away the medical, kind of the genuine, and I mean this with respect, the genuine medical situation. Everything else I loved. It was just like, because it was a challenge, back against the wall. It was, let's go. This is a fight. This is war now. Like, let's do it. And I think that sometimes brings out the best in entrepreneurs, where there is actually a backs against the wall. If 3 of the staff want to leave, fucking great. I'll do it all myself anyway. Like, I'll probably do it better. Now, I'm not going to be able to do it better for 3 years, but I'm definitely going to be able to do it better for the next 2 or 3 months and start again. So I think it's a good lesson to us all. But I think if I was analyzing your situation, Gina, the speed of which you've had success, and I was taught this by a very good mentor, and hopefully this helps and anybody listening. Often what happens is your external circumstances, they've progressed so much and they've developed in a way that's almost unrecognizable, and you never really thought you were going to be this successful. Emotionally, you haven't caught up. And I'll say that in mine, in retrospect to my situation, where there was a meteoric rise of these businesses that were just like, what the fuck's going on, right? And I didn't really pay much attention to it because I was busy doing it. And to me, it was so natural. And I was doing this, and I was doing this seminar, and then I was doing the next one. I was starting this property business, and I was doing this. And after about 5 years, I remember talking to somebody about how I was still uncomfortable spending money on things, or I didn't like, I genuinely had a bit more money around me, or I had a bit more opportunity around me, or freedom around me, where I could go places or spend money or do things with the family. And I was like, I'm not doing it. But I could, right? Why am I living in that type of house? Or why am I not flying first class? All the things I try and teach you, right? Why am I not traveling in a certain way? Why am I not doing this? Because my practical circumstances say I can, but my emotional circumstances haven't caught up. So in essence, I'm living in 2024, but my emotional blueprint is still in 2016. And sometimes that happens to a business leader, is that the practical circumstances are, we've built this 7-figure practice, and I've got these 7 or 8 staff, and I've got these NFL stars wanting to come and see me, and I've got all of this community saying good things about me. But emotionally, I'm still Gina, who, and you said it earlier on this podcast, you're still grateful that people want to come and work for you, right? In like that first phase, you're still grateful that people want to come and work for you, right? I've started a business, and hey, somebody wants to work for me. It's like, this is cool, and I'm so pleased and humbled, and this is nice. That's brilliant in 2016 or 17 when Gina starts the business, but not when she's a 7-figure cash practice trying to get to 2 or 3 million or 3rd or 4th location. Gina's external circumstances are far and away outpacing the emotional capacity in which she's kind of running the business. So the two have to go hand in hand, because if not, you end up with somebody who's very successful, lots of money, lots of freedom, but emotionally unable to move forward and actually enjoy the circumstances that the practical success has created. And I think that's where many business owners end up practically, circumstantially, visibly successful, emotionally hasn't caught up. And then you end up living a life where you are tolerating assholes. You are tolerating ratbags, scumbags. You will put up with customers who whinge and whine and bitch and moan about anything. It's like, fucking send them somewhere else. Eventually, it's like, grow a set and fucking send them next door. Give them somebody else's telephone number and tell them Gina sent you, right? It's that type of mentality that you want to end up with. So I think that's what's happened to you, because you're so quick to make decisions. Let's do this, hire this, fire this, do that, or move to a new premises, raise the rates, do whatever. But what we possibly needed was a little bit of a, Gina needs to just update the processor to bring it closer to the success that she's had externally for today. Does that make sense?
Exactly. And I think you've really helped encourage that with some of our conversations in CEO and PPM Live. I think looking back, sometimes I've definitely not trusted that I could, that first of all, that I was where I was at, or it could be even more. I think, the traditional PT model, you swirl around in these clinics, and you just kind of in this rat race of never really thinking bigger or thinking beyond. And once I started thinking beyond, I think I had to actually believe that, like, I could do this, and I could even be bigger and even do more. And I was surrounded in situations that weren't ideal or optimal. And I think in terms of like the space that we were previously in and maybe some past employees. But once I started believing that not only could I do more, but I should and deserve to do better and deserve to do more and deserve to provide that for our clients. Once I started having that better self-belief and confidence in myself, that emotional maturity to get to the next level, I think is what has allowed me to pull the trigger on some bigger decisions. And I 100% agree with that. When you move very fast and very, very quickly, sometimes you forget that, now you're, living in a different environment and you can afford a different situation versus what you were in the past. And I think we see that in society and we see that in business. And I certainly have experienced that myself.
You see people carry these blueprints and these emotions with them all their life, and it's why you end up with a very true situation where there's a guy or a girl in their 80s with $2 million in the bank, and they don't know how to spend it, and you ask them to spend a little bit of money on their healthcare, and it's, oh no, like, just in case. It's like, well, dude, you're 85, right? Like, statistically, you're not going to spend this 2 million at this point. Like, your kids are getting it, minus a big fucking tax deduction. Like, should we spend a little bit on some physio or some windows for your house? Maybe just keep the warm in. If you are going to die, let's die warmly. That type of thing. No, but the money, they just haven't updated the processor, and it's something that isn't taught. It's very rarely understood. It takes a lot of self-awareness for somebody to kind of bring it to your attention. I've watched it in business owner communities that I'm looking at people going, surely you're happier than this. And it's like, you get close to some of the business, the P&L is like, there's money everywhere. And I've got a friend who's sold his business for a few million recently. It's like, even Saturday night, I'm talking to him, but just enjoy your life. Like, stop worrying about the next thing. And who gives a shit? Oh, I want to do it again. I'm like, why? Well, just in case, like, just why don't we focus on some other areas of your life, and let's try this, and let's go and have fun here, and let's travel, and let's do all of these other things, and not just do them, but actually own them and embrace them. Because I think that's actually most of our challenges, is that we'll hide from the sort of inner work that we've got to do of acceptance, and I am good enough, and I am worthy enough, and I am fucking good at what I do. But equally, there still needs to be a humility of, I could be wrong. And I could lose it, and I might end up having to go back to being a physio or whatever, right? Like, insert the blank. But I also know if I ever did, I figured out how to get to this point now, so I'd probably do it all again anyway. And I think that's the bit, for me, it was always the Paul the physio Paul. So I used to talk about two Pauls. It was like Paul the physio, again, and no disrespect to anybody who's still a physio, the circumstances of life now as a multi-business owner in, 2 countries with 40 staff, very, very different. The circumstances of Paul the media business owner versus Paul the physio, who kind of rubbed legs for a living, if you like. The different stretched legs, whatever I used to do, that Paul had a set of beliefs and an understanding of himself. But the set of circumstances that were available to me as a physio are very, very different from me as a multi business owner doing what I'm doing today. But if I didn't update the belief pattern, then what was the point of updating the opportunity and the freedom and the sort of extra money that comes in now as a result of the extra responsibility that I've taken? And I think that's Gina possibly made the decision as a employed, humble, kind of waiting for a paycheck, wonderful PT, like that gal, right? Well, like now this is Gina of like 2024, like smashing it and fighting with landlords and dealing with fucking, arsehole customers or insurance companies that won't pay bills or whatever, right? Like that's a totally different Gina, and you have to recognize that all of the time. And I think that's where you get your confidence from, and your sort of inner belief and strength that you've overcome all of these things, and it becomes much easier to make decisions about pushing people out if they're not congruent with your beliefs and values. So let's talk about lessons on moving to a bigger premises. There is somebody listening to this podcast right now who is either just about to move to a bigger premises and is about to wait on every word that you're going to say. And there is somebody who has just moved to a bigger premises thinking, fuck, I wish Paul had interviewed Gina 2 weeks ago because I'm in shit right now. They ran out of money. Nobody's come. They built it, but nobody came. It's cost them twice as much money than they thought. It took 10 times longer than they thought. They didn't have a cash flow forecast. The interest rate on their loan or their line of credit has gone up, etc. Come on, share with me some lessons on moving to a bigger premises.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity to share this, because I think this is something that I wish I would have known some of these things before I jumped all in. And one of the gifts of being able to make fast decisions and quick decisions is that you can make fast progress. But sometimes, especially if you easily trust someone that maybe you've known for a long time, and maybe you're in a, situation where you're leasing space from them, sometimes that can end up hurting you in the end if you haven't done your due diligence as a business owner. And so I'd say one of the first things I would say is allow for time to find a new space and to grow into that. It took a much longer time than I thought that it would take. The whole commercial lease process, moving into a new space, it took about 8 to 10 months. It took from the time that I started looking, which was about March 1st of last year, 2023, until the time that we moved in was January 2nd, 2024. So it took quite a while. So if you have the time, plan adequate time out for that. I would say if you have the thought of, going into, a lot of people, especially in cash pay, go into a sublease situation. If you have the opportunity to do a direct lease versus a sublease situation inside of a gym, I would say most times it would be better to go into a direct lease situation, where you can make more of your own rules and have a good understanding of what that lease actually, the terms of that lease actually are. So one of the mistakes I made was early on trusting someone that I had known for a long time, in a sublease situation. And I found out at the very end that this person didn't have the legal right to ever sublease space to me. And so for 2.5, 3 years, the leases that I had signed with this person were actually ineffective. I mean, at any time I could have been kicked out of that space. So I think one of the things that's super important to do your due diligence and getting legal counsel to look over the lease, the master lease, and do your due diligence in having an attorney or legal counsel look at the sublease. It's worth the extra money that you will have to spend and the time to do that, because it can save you a lot of headache in the long run. I won't go into all the details of the situation that I was in, but I learned a lot. And it was, in the end, I had to pay a fair amount of money for legal counsel to get out of the situation I was in, just to cover all of our bases, to make sure that we could exit that situation without any headache, without any trouble, and move into the new space where I'm at now. One of the best things that I did moving into this new space was to hire a real estate broker. And so in the US, that broker will help you navigate the local area, and they know property managers and they know certain landlords or people in the area that not only have good space, but are good people to work with. So if you can find a good quality real estate broker that you feel like you can trust, ask around, then they can help you navigate, because it's a big world out there, especially in our area. There are a lot of commercial spaces for rent, and it felt very scary for the first time doing that, not having an awareness of where to start. And so that real estate broker will be your go-between between the property manager and the property owner and yourself, and they will help you negotiate the terms. And that, I didn't realize how it worked at the time, but that real estate broker essentially gets paid by their company, gets paid to do that, and by these property managers and property owners who are looking to fill these spaces. But I spent time. My real estate broker was really interested in hearing my story, and he knew the story that I was coming out of, and so he was very passionate about helping me and finding the right space. So we were able to find a great space. Again, I took time to find the right space, and then negotiated some really great terms for the lease, and got legal counsel this time, sufficient legal counsel to adequately go through all the terms of the lease, and to make sure that I was comfortable and confident moving forward into this new space.
What about lessons on opportunity then? What new opportunities has it brought you?
It's kind of like making the decision it's like the very first time I made a decision to start the business. Sometimes these bigger decisions, these bigger leaps
Yeah.
can leave you with a little lump in your throat, but you know it's the right thing and you go for it. You got to do it, right? You got to take some risk. You know it's the right thing. And then when you get into the space, you realize, oh my goodness, I could not have imagined how good this feels. We're in our own space. I could not have imagined how our clients feel coming into this new space. Everyone who's come in here, especially that have known me for a while, they're like, wow, this is first class. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And not only is that a good feeling, but it also allows us to serve our clients better and serve them well. And we were able to have bigger programs. We have a conference room upstairs that I have access to. So we've hosted several workshops already in those spaces. And the opportunities are there to expand and build and grow within our space, and we get to do it on our terms, and we don't have to worry about what other people, as a sublease before, I had to worry about what other people in the building were doing, and now we get to do things the way we see as best and do things on our terms, and to really provide a good community and service for our clients.
My biggest lesson I got to 4, and it was always retrospectively how good the cash flow forecast was versus the marketing plan behind it. Because there's the fallacy of if they build it, they'll come, and that's not always true, as many people find out. And you might think it takes 4 months to recoup your cash. The reality is it's probably 8. There is nearly, or I would say 9 out of 10 times, if somebody leaves my world, this is what happens. They run out of cash. They have such a successful business that causes them to go to level 2, so I clinic number 2, and they run out of cash. They haven't just, it doesn't matter what you do, they haven't forecasted it appropriately in terms of the cash that's coming in. They've massively underestimated the build out cost and the staffing cost. And the bit that I always find that they get wrong is the attention that the business owner has on the move versus on the actual growth of the business. 2 different things. So they put all of their effort into speaking to builders and plumbers in the city and the architect and getting the right equipment, and they take their eye off the ball when it comes to the marketing or the sales or the recruitment or the customer service or whatever it will be. And in the end, that comes back to haunt them. It's a shudder moment for me, I must admit, as a coach, when somebody comes and says, we're thinking about moving to a second premises, or we're going to move to a bigger premises, whatever. I'm like, oh shit, here we go. But like, brace yourself. It was all going so well for the last 2 or 3 years. It was going so well with this client. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, like the crickets start, and the level of effort required is it's just different from when you're starting out and you're subleasing out of a gym or whatever it will be. But it's the natural progression. It's the natural progression in the business. You've got to have a cash flow forecast. And I think that's where a lot of businesses go wrong. And secondly, it's got to be backed up by a robust marketing plan that factors in, and this is the key bit, it factors in that the business owner's attention will be on the move, not on executing the marketing plan. And that's what I mean. That's where it goes wrong for businesses. It's not that you can't do it. It's that there is no love of cash flow forecasting, but the business owner's attention isn't on the marketing required to cover the costs of the additional rent, which in some cases it can be, 4, 5, 6 grand a month people are paying out more to, and that's before the cost of equipment or leases or whatever it is that people are getting themselves into. So I love it. Last question, Gina. I always ask this at the end. You've been around me for quite a while, listened to the podcast for a few years. What's the number one thing that I've been able to kind of teach you, or hopefully in some way improve your business or life or whatever it will be? What would you say? What would you say? I always like to ask at the end. What would you say it is?
I think the number one thing that you've instilled in me is confidence, and is the ability to, no matter what happens in the business, when things go wrong, to hit that and fight that, and overcome that, whatever challenge or obstacle, whatever might be in the way. And you've given me the tools, practical tools, in order to do that. So, whether that's through getting on a coaching call with one of the POGOF staff, whether that's listening to a podcast that's been really inspirational. I can't tell you the number of times I'm think, oh, I wonder what I should do in this situation. So I go back to an old podcast, and I listen to that on the way to work. I open up a book. The leadership book is phenomenal. And I think the number one thing that you've done is empowered me as a business owner with the confidence and the tools necessary to be successful. And I think that, just going back to when you were talking about ramping up marketing, I think in October, when I knew I was going to be moving into a new location, I signed on with CMO because I knew I needed to be spot on with marketing. I knew I needed to be spot on with our systems, and I joined Physio Funnels. And so I think you providing the tools and the resources has given me the ability and the confidence to say, I'm not sure how to do that, but I know who to ask. And so I go make sure that I have the coaching calls and make sure I know who to reach out to when I'm not sure what to do, but I know that I'm going to find the answer. I know I'm going to move forward and move ahead, and despite any obstacle that might be in my way. So I think that you've just empowered me to be successful in that way, and I'm very, very grateful, and thank you for that.
That's amazing. It's lovely to hear, and it's humbling really when I hear it at the end. And what I always wish in everything that I do, everything I teach, every book I write, every podcast I do, every rant I have, every flight I get on to go to a seminar, I always hope I've left with the person listening or watching or there with a bit more belief in themselves. I genuinely, if you study me in any book I write or anything I say, there is ingredients of that everywhere. I just think that that's the key to life. It's a key to a successful life. That the world is upside down. It thinks everything's outside of themselves. It thinks that it's going to be a government. We've got an election in Britain. There's one in the US. Everybody's pinning their hopes on a new president or prime minister, and that's going to change their fortunes. They're still going to wake up the next day with low mood, with a lack of fulfillment, a lack of belief in themselves, a lack of confidence in themselves. And until you fix that, nothing changes. And I could be bent at the stakes and I wouldn't change my opinion on it. That's the key to everything. If I can get people to believe in themselves, I don't need to believe in you. I don't think your parents need to believe in you. I don't think your husband needs to believe in you. I don't think your kids need to believe in you. I think all of that's just an added bonus if you get that. And people use all of that as an excuse. Is my husband doesn't believe in me, or my dad doesn't believe in me, or my mother doesn't believe in me, all that bollocks, right? Well, what difference is that going to make? How are we going to fix that, right? We're not. So why don't we just start believing in ourselves? Because I think once you get that, everything else is easy. The marketing plan's easier, the hiring's easier, the firing's easier, the raise the prices is easier, the deal with the Glassdoor review is easier, the deal with the 1-star Google review is easier. So who gives a fuck? Like, send them on. Like, it's irrelevant. It's not a reflection of who you are. It's a reflection of somebody's opinion of something, right? Like, God, how the hell am I supposed to manage all of that? And every single person I come into contact's opinion on me or what I did. I'm not going to, but I can control how I feel about myself. And I believe that if you get that, magic happens, and you see it in people like you, which is lovely. I have the best job in the world. I get to interview, I get to work with you, I get to see you at seminars, I get to travel around the world and meet people like you. And it is it's just the most amazing thing that I'm humbled to be part of. So thank you. And from us here at POGOF Media, we hope that we absolutely love working with you. You are an absolute a light, if you like, every time the staff see your name on a calendar or they get that email, they'll respond in hours. Because of the energy, it's very infectious. So I think you're amazing as well. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. If I could just say one more thing, Paul, I think one thing that is really inspirational to this community is that you're a very real person. And I think that's one thing that stood out to me from the beginning. And to see the way that you've handled yourself through various challenges and things that have happened to your own personal life is really inspiring to us, because we know that you're going through the same, going through challenges in your business and your life. And it's very inspirational. And as a leader, it really gives us something to look up to. And I really thank you for that, because there's days that I'm think, man, like, I don't know how he does it. and you're traveling all over the country and you're having fun despite, any challenges or obstacles that are in your way. And so I think just kudos to you. We're really grateful to have a leader like you. And I know myself, and it's been really something. You're really someone that I feel like I can look up to and trust moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun, and it's, again, just to give you a little insight in that. Take this the right way, and I don't think I've ever shared this, but obviously there's always moments. People see me like this, and I have fun, and I laugh and play, and I have my moments, and I rant and stuff. But it's all, again, another belief, a core belief of mine is, like, what's the point if I'm not going to have fun, right? Life's always going to chuck shit at me. It's going to have unexpected situations, and there'll be stuff that go on behind the scenes that I don't really talk about. And I say, well, what's the point? Like, it's so easy to talk about all the shit that you go through, whatever, but just get up and get on with it. And I think that's sometimes the best thing that you can do to people, or for people, is just show them that. But what I do, he's a little writer downer, as they say, and we'll end the podcast on this. But I get up, and if I've had a bad sleep, or I've had a shit dream, or just something, right? Or there's just something happening, and I think I don't like this situation or whatever, I just ask, what would the best version of Paul do? How would the best version of Paul deal with this? How would the version that I'm trying to be, the optimum version of Paul, how would he deal with this? Not the current one, not the one in low mood, and not the one who's frustrated, not the one who's pissed, not twin B, whatever you want to call it, not the lacking sleep, jet lagged, energetic, lacking energy or whatever, which there's moments. How would the best version of Paul deal with this? And that's the phrase that goes through my head. And all of a sudden it's like, well, he'd do this, and he'd do this, and he'd just be nice, and he'd have fun, and he'd tell a joke, or he'd put music on, or he'd go to the gym, or he'd read a good book, or he'd go out with his friend, or he'd go for a beer, or he'd get drunk, or whatever, like whatever the action, whatever it is, right? Like, well, that's what I do. So that's my little trigger. And I think we all need a little one. What would the best version of Gina do, right? That's what you've got to catch yourself in that moment. This is the worst version of Gina, or a C+ version of Gina at this point. How do I get back to A+ Gina? And when you start that conversation and dialogue with yourself, it's unbelievable the opportunities that your brain comes up with, because it knows the answers. You just ask it stupid questions. It's like, why do I feel shit? And then you go, well, because your husband's left you, your kids don't like you, you're fucking useless, your kids have all fucking delinquent, there's bad reviews on the internet about you. It's like, well, that's why you feel shit, Gina. It's like, that's what people ask themselves. Like, they keep saying, why do I feel like shit? And then the brain goes, well, because you're a loser, you don't get out of bed, like, nobody likes you, you talk to yourself. So you just ask it a different question. All right, what would the best version of Paul do? If the best version of Paul could deal with this exact situation, what would he do? Doesn't mean I will, but I start from that point and I go, okay, how do I make the first step to that? Well, just go to the gym. All right, what after? Just put some good music on. Then what after that? Well, call a friend. And what after that? Read a book, put a podcast on, travel, whatever. Like, just that's the triggers, if you like, that I try to get to, that just keeps me in a good place, regardless of what's going on. So, but thank you, Gina. Where can people find out more about you? What's your Instagram, your Twitter, or whatever it is that you're on these days? Where can they find you on social?
Perfect. So our business is Fick Physical Therapy and Sports Performance. Our Instagram is at Fick PT and Performance. I also have a podcast called the PT Rebels Podcast, which we release a new show every Monday. And you can find me at www.fickptandperformance.com.
Well, I've got to ask, where's my invite on this Rebel podcast? If there's ever a fucking rebel that needs to be on a podcast, you're looking at him, Gina. No, so I'm a bit disappointed that I haven't been invited on a podcast about rebels.
I thought you'd be perfect, but I thought you might be a little too busy. So if you don't mind, I'd love to have you.
Gina. I would it would thrill me to be on a podcast about Rebels. In fact, I'm going to go home and tell my kids tonight. There's a proud moment in their dad's life that I've been invited on a podcast about Rebels. I've made it. I
Amazing.
should bring Tobias on. My son Tobias would love that.
I would love to have him on as well.
Yeah,
He is amazing.
We'll get him on. In fact, you know what you should do? Next event you come to, he'll be at PPM Live in October. Interview him for your podcast. It will make his life. Bring a microphone. He wants to be a YouTuber. He's already got his channel, Iconic Tobias G. That's who he.
Amazing.
I don't know what he wants to do, but that kid is going to do something different. Let's just put it that way. And I cannot wait to watch it. But he would love to be on your podcast. So let's do that between us, and I'll start to tell him that he's going to be on your podcast. So, but
Amazing.
I would like to be on it. So get in touch and we'll fix it up, definitely.
Be an honor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time, your wisdom, and everything else that you've done. You're an amazing member of the community. So thank you from the bottom of our heart. You're a star.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. See you soon. All right. Thanks, Gina. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.